So thank you everyone who is tuning in. You are listening to Ready for Agents, where we talk about everything related to AI agents and how to set them up, frameworks, critical tips, and how to get started. And today I am honored seriously to have Gal Peretz, who is not only heading AI and data at Torque, but is also a co-host at Lang Talks, which is one of the leading podcasts for anyone who wants to get into agentic frameworks, all things agents AI. Not only because of this name, I'll say not only LangChain, and is one of the leading figures in everything agents here, Israel, and I would say maybe even the Middle East. So thanks for joining me, Gal.
Thanks, Omer. Pleasure to be here.
Amazing. We have what's the do's and don'ts of vibe coding and how to get your organization started with vibe coding. We got where agents and agentic frameworks are going and sort of like how the advancement of the LLMs might influence the frameworks. And we got practical tips, war stories. So there's so much for us to break down. What's dangerous about vibe coding? Maybe we can think about it as, do's and don'ts, or how to get your organization future-proof, future-ready for vibe coding.
Yeah, for sure. I think as any new technology, there are risks in adopting the technology, but I think that vibe coding specifically can be a super multiplier to the R&D. So I think that it's a good rephrasing how you can adopt safely vibe coding. And I think one big issue is ownership, right? So when AI generates code, who actually is the owners, right? So if nobody feels responsible, things can go wrong fast.
Yeah.
And it is the main critical point, because when you just, when in the past, when you just install something and you just hit next without really pay attention to the configuration, and then you understand that you messed things up. So I think that is pretty similar here when you hit tab or accept when cursor suggests something, and now you are not really aware of what is going on. So I think that anyone that really adopt vibe coding and in general adopt some tools that generate code and want to push this code into production must also review every line, right? So you must understand, and I know that it's difficult because we are lazy as developers, but you must understand every line that it's going to be in production. So you will switch your role. Instead of just writing the code, you will become the reviewer, like reviewing code of junior, right? So junior developer, you as a developer, also owner. If for example, you will be on call and there is something in production, a bug in production, you will be the owner of really fixing it. If someone is in vacation, if the owner is not really can handle the situation, you will need to understand the code and to fix that. Same goes with vibe coding. Those agents get stuck into a self-correction loop, but sometimes they eventually get to something that works, but it's rarely the best solution. So I think that for proof of concept, this can be great, right? It's fine. We don't really care about long-term maintenance and it's great. But for production, it's a bit of a different story. You need to treat the output as more of inspiration, but then you need to understand the code, not treat it as a ground truth, just to take inspiration from it, and then sometimes, or more often than not, rewrite things. And maybe one practical tip is take those big tasks that you have and break it to a manageable small chunks. This also goes when you do AI engineering in general. When you have this big task and you just write your solution instead of just one LLM with one prompt, you just break it to micro agents. Same go when you use AI, use cursor, you can break it, you can annotate your context to eliminate any hallucinations. I think, in general, just break it to small chunks, and then it's way easier to review and control it.
That's really good point to do, or starter points to consider. I wonder if you have, with your experience with either Torque or other organizations, you sometimes see other startups, consulting, whatever that might be. Have you seen practically how to set up guardrails? So if we can go, for example, with this ownership, one persona kind of thing, what kind of person is that? Is that like a senior architect? Or if you say understand every line, what are some of the rules. And if you're listening, then on YouTube, I'm air quoting like the rules that you set up for your R&D org, such that you can really make sure that people really read through and are very familiar with the code generated. So if we can go a little bit into the low-level tactics.
Yeah, I think that so what we did is basically we took like 10 people, like from when we wanted to really adopt like Cursor, for example, right? So we took those 10 people from across the organization. It's like from DevOps. We took one person from front end, back end, Go developers, Python developers, and then we took like 10 people and just did a POC with Cursor. Every week we gathered and just share tips, tricks, what works, what not. And then we had this like discussion, a great discussion, how to adopt like Cursor in every department in the organization. Because I think that, for example, when you front-end developer is pretty different adopting like Cursor, because then you may or may not adopt, for example, tools like V0 that can complete Cursor and its ability in the front end and UX patterns. And also, for example, if you're a Go developer, maybe you will use different MCPs servers and tools and different Cursor rules, different guidelines. So I think there is not a silver bullet here, but like as I mentioned, like dividing tasks to small chunks, maybe even in adopting those tools, you can adopting it a little bit differently between the departments, right?
Okay, so what I'm hearing, what I'm learning is you have this like almost like SWAT SEAL, like this like the Navy SEALs. You could have the SEAL team like that go before all the rest and like the reconnaissance, and basically they gather their insights to share with the organization later on. And because of the nature of how Cursor or whatever you might be using to write your code, AI driven, is diverse, then that team needs to include people from different angles.
Exactly. I think that the like question if like vibe coding or if like AI generated code works, it's not like a matter of general question. It's depends, right? It's very good at front end development, I think. But when you involve like business logic, back end development, type safe and rare like languages like for example Rust, so the things is very different there, right? So I think that adopting those technology in different department, when you use different technology, different tech stack, is crucial for the success, and it just bring different best practices for every.
Okay, that's a good insight to keep in mind. This diversity. Speaking of which, if we can have a little bit of a tiny shift as we think through, and there's been a lot of talking on where the what's considered agent, and when LLMs become, especially with deep research mode, like they become like in their essence more agentic, right? What do you think people R&D leaders should consider in terms of the future of agentic frameworks and this vibe coding with those advancements? I think now with all four, especially, sort of like almost groundbreaking, and we see the same thing with Gemini. The latest that is also like at the cloud level. What would be good to keep in mind?
So I think that LLM is getting better, no doubt about that. But I think that the solution is really split it into two categories where we get values from LLM and agents. And I think that agent is super overloaded term. But yeah, let's maybe try to break it down to the solution. So I think the first solution that we can get value from LLM, and I call it the 0 to 80 tasks. So things like generating idea, brainstorming, doing some broad research like ChatGPT deep research, or even like spinning like vibe coding, like spinning a quick POC. Yeah. So those are perfect situation for autonomous agents, and they're like the LLM is getting better. And I think that LLM with maybe like MCPs to just close the gap of the context gap, those can be great solution for the 0 to 80 situation when the precision is not critical at that point. But then you have this remaining 20%, right? So the high stakes, the nuanced task where you need maybe human to collaborate with, and then maybe you need to split this workflow and to just push and put bias into the system, into the solution. And there, the framework and the agentic library, I think they can be a great benefit. And I think they will help you like design your system. So maybe system that need collaboration with human and interruption. It seems easy, but it's a very hard task. Maybe like system that need to understand when it miss the context and need to stop. And maybe you have a very different indexing mechanism. Maybe you have a RAG or graph application. So I think these were those framework shines. Those are the 20% that I think that people really underestimate how hard it is to reach this 20%. But I think it's very similar to what we are seeing in autonomous cars, where people like thought that, yeah, we have this like, autocorrect system that correct the driver. So from here to autonomous car, we're going to reach it in few years. I think it wasn't the case, right? So we hit a ceiling there, and I think the same ceiling we will be in this space when we'll understand that we still need like AI engineers, LLM engineers. My take, I think that AI engineers will still be essential for, I think, at least for the next decade.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting take. So the other part is like it requires a lot of AI engineers, or at least some, And what would be some examples for our 0 to 80 tasks that teams might be working on, or products that you are familiar with that are like good examples of that?
So I think that a very good example of the 0 to 80 task is basically deep research, right? So ChatGPT deep research, just, traverse all the solution in the web, just go from one link to another, summarize a lot of information, useful information and not useful information, and just give you a brief an overview of what is going on in a very high bird view. And I think it's great because there you started with no knowledge about a specific topic, and now you have this amazing summary, amazing report that you can understand the topic, at least as a newbie. You can understand the topic, but then also there, when you want to really go deeper, I think that the situation, this is the point when you are going to transition from the 0 to 80 product to the 20% of product to the last mile, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to code, I think you said it, which is interesting. Like for POCs, it's a little bit like the way you think about it. I think people capture or imagine the same way the high level coding for technical product managers and at this point non-technical product managers, like Lovable Bolt, Base 44, basically the tools that allow creating either internal tools or POCs, but you wouldn't take it to production because it would not be at a standard that you want your brand at.
Yeah, I think like so I see like Lovable as the next generation of flow code, right? So as people did like take no code to production, there are like a product, there are no code product in production, but usually we need developers to write the code, and I think that basically vibe coding has the same advantage and disadvantage. Like it make you faster. It's without any, like it's for citizen developer, which basically people that not really know how to code, they can just prompt the system and just observe what they get and just refine. And I think that about the refining, it's I think this is a critical point when you need to refine a solution with vibe coding. It's just a bit hard to do, and you just go, okay, if you know a little bit of code, you just go, okay, I will do it myself, right? The last mile. And I think it's connected to the previous point about the last mile. The last mile with those kind of product is super hard, and maybe connect those two products to reach this 80%, and then to refine them with engineers, with really developers, senior developers that can refine your solution and take it to production. But then again, we come back to the point of ownership, right? If those developers that need to refine your solution it's not the same ones that really wrote the code. It's going to take time. So I think it's a zero game, right? So if you want a really good solution into production, this comes with on call, which maintains, and it's all come to ownership in the end.
Absolutely. There's no way to get something done without having some owner that would come back and figure out what has gone wrong and why the agent has gone crazy at some point. We see this now even right with robots this week. So have you seen? I mean, we can talk a little bit about like LangChain and LangGraph, but before that, I wonder if you have seen with Torque or other companies like already significant improvements in terms of your team's velocity or maybe even quality. Those usually aren't coming together. It's a little bit of a trade-off, right? So, like, what have you seen in practice? Because you're really at the forefront of what teams can do at this point.
I think there are like few challenges and few benefits from like this kind of the AI era. So first, people don't really understand what are the best practices. And I think that it comes down to how like this new AI team need to look like. Should we form this squad, right? So basically, you need this backend developer, you need this front-end developer. Do you need LLM engineer? Do you need prompt engineer? Is like the AI product need to be different?
Like team structure or like what kind of talent is needed is still a question, or you just think there's a misunderstanding around it?
No, exactly. I think it's a question. I think that people still think with the idea of how teams should look like in like traditional software development, and I think it's a bit different because here you have this LLM and data that really affect the quality of your application. It's not only the code right now; it's not deterministic. You need to understand that you need to establish evaluations, and those are muscles of data science. But again, like you need the velocity of AI engineers or engineers in general. You don't really want the velocity of data science. So you need to understand how to form those new persona or how to recruit this new persona that really can, glue everything together to AI native solutions. So I think this is one challenge, and solve that can really push your team forward and increase velocity. And of course, like as we spoke about adopting AI solution, but in a safe way. So it's not only like, vibe coding for engineers, also like vibe coding for product managers. So today at Torque, I think that like from idea to really working prototype, it takes like days, right? So PMs started to work with V0 in our end, but you can work with Lovable and whatever. But just understand there are new tools, and you need to like you do a switch in your mind that you can do things differently, but then you need to adopt those tools safely. So yeah, I think it comes to PMs, it comes to like UX and UI that need to think differently. They need to structure the UX differently, but they can also adopt those solution. And I think that adopting like the AI native solution is not only beneficial for you in terms of velocity, it's also open your mind to new UX pattern, new product paradigms that you like we are not used to think like that. Like for example, deep research. When you have this agent that go and just do your research, and then they added this like tab, right? So you have this tab that just reflects what the agent do. So think about that they didn't like add this tab in the beginning. So like this agent goes to 10 minutes, like 15 minutes. It's too long, right? So this tab actually justify the work that the agent do for you, and it's okay, right? So you see the question that it asks itself and stuff like that. So it becomes acceptable. I think, yeah, those paradigms is it's new, and adopting those new tools as tools also open your mind to implement those into your product.
That's very useful. And just just you said these data science muscles and the team structure that sometimes is not optimized for this kind of new work. What is this kind of this persona that you think is often missing that can be what you call the glue, right, between the AI engineering, the data science agentic work that is non-deterministic? What is this kind of person? What does it look like in terms of the background, the skills?
Yeah, so I wonder a lot about this question. And actually, when we hired try to hire this persona, we call that LLM engineer. And for me, LLM engineer is people that just curious about agents, want to learn about AI. They don't really have to be like data science, but they need to have the data science mind just to question things, maybe understand that the data is pretty much the affect the quality as the code, right? So establish evaluation, establish like or doing prompt engineering, understanding that prompt engineering is critical for the quality of the application. And also we call them LLM engineer because they have the engineer part, right? So they need to have the velocity, they need to have the builder mindset, right? So they need to push and to build stuff. Then don't really need to have the best skills, for example, in I don't know, Kubernetes, right? So they don't really need to have the best skills in backend development. They have the backend developer that can like complete their skills in this angle, but they need to have a very good engineering skills that they need to affect actually the products. So they need to write a feature and then also have the responsibility of creating those benchmark that assess these features.
Yeah, it's like almost like an LLM rock star. Like, would you say out of your pie of that persona is that would you say like 20 to 30% data science mind and understanding of like non-deterministic kind of work or just models, and then how would you you can if you can have like a synthesized version of that person, how would you break down out of 100% those different skills, right? Like, is it leaning towards a builder or like an engineering mindset?
I think it's for sure leaning toward a builder mindset. They need to have this data science mindset, but I will say, yeah, 20%, maybe less. They need to have I would call it like data science curiosity. They don't really need to have a master in NLP or data science master, but they need to have the curiosity to understand under the hood, get the intuition, how LLM works. It's pretty much like a must. Because then you understand how prompt engineering affects those LLMs. I don't think that they need to have like, for example, a great understanding of how to do fine tuning for LLM specific.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that they need to have the curiosity and the understanding that affect the application. But then also, as you mentioned, like the builder mindset is super crucial for this role.
Okay, that's like almost like a LLM hacker for your startup.
Exactly, and those are rare.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's right. It's like when people ask in the job spec, people ask like, find me a candidate with 10 years of experience as AI engineer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So before we go into our like speed round of tips for newbies and your favorite resources, we can touch one of the things no one is gonna take away from you is that you have this critical experience with different frameworks, LangChain and LangGraph, but and also other frameworks. So if you have any pointers and tips for people getting started with those frameworks, because I've been asked several times, and I know engineering teams are getting into agentic frameworks, what would be good to take into consideration, the things you would not find on the subreddits?
Yeah, I think that maybe we can talk about like for start, maybe about adopting solution and adopting the technology. So at first, when you start your LLM journey, I think that as an organization grows, like in start, you have these LLM enhancers, right? So you have those summarization, you have those like feature of just applying LLM with context, and it give a great value. So for those, I don't really recommend to adopt any framework. Just use what you used to, any program that you use, any program language that you use. Just just grab the OpenAI SDK
like a wrapper.
in the wrapper, exactly. But then when you have these agents and you evolve to agent solution, I think that there are few frameworks to choose from. But I think that in this spectrum, you have the Crew AI, for example, that is very I would say like a descriptive language, which you just describe what you want, which agent, what is the themes of agents look like, and so on. And then you just kick off the solution. So it's more like in the side of low code solution. Then you have the LangChain, and I think that LangChain got off a really rough start because they changed a lot at the beginning. But I think that now they establish a good program paradigm of disconnect the big library to small chunks. For example, LangChain Core, you have LangChain Core, which is the basics and building blocks of the solution, and then you have LangChain OpenAI, which implement only OpenAI stuff, and then you have LangChain Gemini, and then you have LangGraph, which is basically, and every part here you can just consume or not, depends on your solution. And one thing that I think that people miss is that LangGraph is actually super imperative. So you have to define how your agent moves from one state to another in a predeterministic way. So there is not a magic there, right? So this is pretty different from, for example, solution like Crew AI and other solution. And I think that another maybe a good feature that LangChain, for example, has is event system. So basically, you have this multi-agent system. There are a lot of going on. There are multiple components, micro agents that talk with each other. So LangChain, for example, LangChain itself, not LangGraph, has a event system that you can emit event from every LLM call, from any tool call, and this is actually perfect for event-driven programming. And every micro agent can emit event that then affect other part of the software. Maybe another thing is that they develop a really good interruption system, so it can be for human in the loop. So imagine you have this super complicated multi-agent system, and you have this micro agent that understand that he need to stop what he's doing, and there is a state, because those agents are really a stateful application, right? So you need to stop everything to save this state of every agent that you have in the system. Every agent can have different state, right? So you need to stop and then maybe do a human in the loop, ask human what to do, how to go, what go next, and maybe do a background processing. For example, now we are adopting MCPs, right? So MCP is client and server. So in client and server in MCPs, you are not really doing the tool execution inside the process itself. So you need to stop everything to do this request, and maybe this request can be a background tool, right? So for example, in Torque, we have processes like, for example, asking someone something in Slack. So this is a background execution that we need to stop, and we are not going to retain the or just to stay with the connection open. And then when you get the response of the tool, you need to actually retrieve all of the state that you had before, and interruption in LangGraph can help you implement that kind of things. And I think something that maybe people really underestimate and not paying attention to is the playground and debugging environment of those framework. And I think that, for example, LangGraph Studio, it's great because it's not give you a ability to only debug your code, because code debugging, we have our IDE, right? So it gives you the ability to debug the data flow. So you can actually stop in any LLM call, in any tool execution, and just, for example, change the state and see what the LLM or what the agent will do if this response of this LLM would be different. You can really, this tool is more for prompt engineer and data engineer, and those personas is new personas that you need to really give them the tools to make the quality of the application. We have the tools for the engineers, the debugger, the IDE, we have unit testing, but then you have to adopt new tools for the AI engineer, for the prompt engineer, in order to improve the quality of the application.
Amazing. I think, I think there's many gems here to unpack, and some are lesser known. Like, I think people are less familiar with the playground, the debugging. You have the traces and like Smith and a lot of observability tools that the creators of came here to this podcast. But yeah, there's so much that is untapped. And it seems like this is just for you the tip of the iceberg. Maybe we'll have, based on popular demand, if we find it, maybe we can have a full breakdown of the key features of LangGraph and LangChain, and how to move from newbie to a stellar LangGraph user. And so we are approaching our lightning round, where I'm going to try to put you where you were many years ago at this point. And I can only assume, as a father of three, that it's been at least a decade or more of you playing with models. If I put you in your own shoes of you back then, what tips would you have for anyone who's getting started?
Yeah, I think that the best advice that I can give is just start building, right? So start with even small thing, right? So just take a prompt, an LLM, one LLM call, maybe one tool to just understand the idea of agents. No framework, no magic. Just understand how to plumb and everything together, to glue everything together. And then once you got that, just scale it up, right? So multiple prompts, multiple tools, maybe even multiple agents. So just, go from one agent to multiple agents and understand the underneath. Just implement everything from scratch without any framework. And then when you understand the nitty gritty of things, add evaluations, right? So run tests, understand how to evaluate things, because it's not super trivial how to evaluate these unstructured beasts. So add different scenarios, and then when you're ready and understand what is going on under the hood, you should reach to framework like maybe LangChain, LangGraph. We can talk about how to get started with that. But first, I think you need to start with the beginning. Just implement things from scratch.
This is such a needs to be common but uncommon advice, which I think, for reasons I cannot fathom or understand, when it comes to AI, people skip the fundamentals. But basically, just like in engineering, you start super low level, right? And then you go up the stack and like more high level and more abstractions. And
Exactly.
I never really thought about it, but people kind of skip it when they go to AI. So this is super valuable, and I know many people getting started are listening, and I think it's going to be super useful for them. Very quick, what are the resources you go to? Obviously, we have Lang Talks, and we can drop it here and say, I've been listening. It's a really good podcast, full of gems. Other than that, what resources you go to keep up with the latest and greatest in agents and AI?
So actually, like a side note, we created Lang Talks to keep up with the latest and greatest. It makes us we have to research and understand what is out there. But besides the Lang Talk, I think that for me, YouTube is a great resource. So you have the AI engineer track. So there's a AI engineer channel. It's called AI engineer. It's in English. I think that it's great for technical deep dives, more conceptual talk than hands-on coding. But I think it's great. A lot of good people there. Of course, I think that because LangChain started very early, they also have a very good channel talking about, with a really solid tutorial talking about how to implement things with LangChain and LangGraph, but I think it's pretty much the same with any other framework. So understanding the concept, for example, let's take adaptive RAG, corrective RAG, advanced RAG solutions. So you understand how to implement that in LangChain, you will understand how to implement it in whatever, in Pydantic AI, Crew AI, whatever. So there's a great tutorial there. I think a more like a side channel is the World of AI, which is great for quick updates on latest AI trends. It's like combining like AI engineering, but also just AI program. So for example, tips about cursor and so on. Also in this nature, there is AI Jackson that I'm listening to. Very light, good for casual technical content. And like for more deep dive research, but still pretty technical, applied research. So I'm I'm big fan of trellis research. This is how it calls. It's a bit more academic. Like it started like so I did my master in NLP. So this is where I found him.
Mhm.
But so he covered like, for example, academic papers or how to fine tune, but in a very practical way, showing code examples, showing how to deploy model, for example, to run pod and do stuff like that. So yeah, it's not only like the research layer. It's also going deeper to the practical implementation of things. So I think it's can be
Amazing.
great for people. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm familiar with AI Engineer, which is really good. It's also a conference, which is really, really high quality. The LangChain YouTube, those are the last three I'll have to check out because I've not ran into those. So thank you so much. I've learned a lot. We were able to cover quite a bit of ground. If you look at it, hopefully this is super valuable to anyone listening. Thank you so much. This is really a lot of pointers for people to get started and dip their toes in the water of AI. So thank you, Gal. What would be the best way to reach out to you if anyone wants to ask a question or just get in touch?
Yeah, just connect with LinkedIn or just LinkedIn.
Amazing.
Best
Thank you so
place.
much.
Thank you, Omer. Thank you.